This session is one of two parts, both of them on creating space. Today we will talk about physical space. In the next session we'll talk about temporal space. And as the audio is going, you'll notice that some pictures are coming up of personal altars, and that's what we're talking about, creating a personal space, a place to pray. And they've been more or less pulled out randomly off the internet, but just to give you some ideas and perhaps push you into developing your own little altar, your own little prayer space. Years ago, there was a book published called The Sacred and the Profane by a great thinker called Michel Eliade. In this book, he talks about how human beings throughout time have divided space and time into the sacred and the non-sacred. Places that the human beings understand certain places to be more endowed with the spiritual and some places less, and the same with time. And now for many of us, who see the spiritual as being something that's universal, that's everywhere, we don't believe there is time that is more sacred or space that is more sacred, but something in humanity, something in who we are, does warm to that and does see certain places as being more sacred, more spiritual, and some places being less so. And that's why human beings across cultures, across time, have built sacred spaces. Be they churches or temples or altars or whatever. They have seen certain places as a place you go if you wish to be close to the spiritual. Some people find this in beautiful spaces, in nature, or special times of the day, particularly at sunrise or sunset. That is a special time, and people keep going back there because they find a closeness to the spiritual, those places. I happen to live in a place that has many beautiful churches around, old beautiful churches. And people go in there just to be quiet, just to have a space to be closer to the spiritual. People will travel great distances to the great spiritual places, be they cathedrals or temples, just to be there and experience the sacred there. So as human beings, we need to create sacred spaces for ourselves. Now, I've been lucky most of my life. I've lived in houses big enough that I've been able to have a space. But I understand many people don't have that luxury. So I really want to talk about just creating a small space, maybe just a corner or a table, that will allow you to center yourself and center your spiritual life. Now, this space has to have certain elements. The first thing is it's got to be a place that at some point in the day, it can be quiet. We'll talk about time tomorrow, and again, that is a key element in getting quiet, but a place where you can be quiet, you can be at peace, you will not be disturbed. It's probably a place where other people who live with you know that when you're there, not to disturb you. But first place, so some quiet. I find that creating an altar, if you want to call that word, or a table, is a good activity. On it, you put things that will draw you to the spiritual, be it pictures, a statue, maybe prayer beads, maybe some candles, maybe some incense, maybe some picture of someone who's significant to you, maybe something that you find, such as stones or something that brings you closer to the spiritual, allows you to center yourself. I would recommend that you don't make it too busy. There's not too much, because if you put too much on it, you really just lose it all. So be very wise in what you put in it. And it's one of the things that changes over time as your life changes and your spiritual life changes. You might put one thing one time and find that you need to put something later. I also think it's a place that, one thing that I would also recommend, that it's not too quiet. That it is a place that draws you not only into yourself, but allows you to draw yourself out of yourself to the things that you must be concerned with in your spiritual life. One of my most moving places I've ever been able to pray was in a chapel that was on the side of a hill, and it overlooked an absolutely beautiful part of the earth, green and beautiful. But at just as near where you could see, at the limit of where you could see, there was a very busy road between two major cities. And so although you were being drawn into the beauty and the peace of the nature there, you were constantly reminded there were people still going about their daily lives with their concerns and their worries and their joys. And so it allowed you to balance those two things. First, the peace of yourself, but also still engaging with the world. So a place that looks out and over a beautiful garden or over a beautiful landscape is good if that's good for you. Some people get distracted by that. You have to make your decision. A lot of what I'll be talking about in this is finding what works for you. Recently, one place I had the privilege of praying was absolutely wonderful. It was a sort of bayfront window and with a glass above it. And as I was praying, the sun was rising and the moon was setting. It was absolutely beautiful. And again, just drew you towards God. So what we're trying to do is make it your place where you can be at peace and find the spiritual. But it also exists as another thing as a reminder as you're rushing around the work day and you get drawn away from that. It's a place you can bring yourself back to either by seeing it as you just walk into the room or mentally bring yourself back to it as a just reminder to center yourself. We'll talk about other ways to help center yourself as the day goes on, but it allows you to, so instead of being pulled from one place to another and getting caught up in the busyness and all the other issues of the day, it allows you to just for a second, just for a moment, as you picture it, as you see it, or you picture it in your head, to draw yourself back to the center.